So, you're dreaming of owning a massive ocean liner, packing it with vacationers, and watching the profits roll in from overpriced cocktails. It sounds like an easy gold mine, especially since this booming vacation sector raked in an unbelievable $71 billion during 2024. While there is definitely room for new competitors to jump in, the real challenge is surviving long enough to actually enjoy the wealth. We need to clarify the basics first, because the average person fundamentally misunderstands what these colossal vessels actually are. These aren't just large boats, they are completely independent floating metropolises that must generate their own power and treat their own waste. Simultaneously, they have to navigate the open ocean while keeping thousands entertained and serving out massive amounts of food around the clock. Consider Royal Caribbean's newest flagship from early 2024, a massive structure featuring 20 decks and space for nearly 8,000 passengers. To grasp its true scale, imagine a vessel slightly shorter than a sideways Empire State Building, operated by a crew outnumbering most rural towns. Inside, guests can explore 40 distinct dining venues, an ice rink, and even a groundbreaking suspended infinity pool hovering over the waves. Add in a fully equipped hospital, sprawling casinos, and satellite connectivity, all costing a staggering $2 billion just to build. Even downsizing to a smaller, boutique luxury ship for elite travelers will still easily set you back roughly $500 million. Yet, the initial construction cost isn't what bankrupts most aspiring operators, as the financial bleed starts long before anyone ever boards. Nobody pays outright cash for these leviathans. They secure massive, decade-long loans where astronomical interest payments kick in immediately upon signing. Then comes the complex web of registration, where major companies actively avoid American ports in favor of places like Panama or the Bahamas. By sailing under these foreign flags of convenience, corporations dodge heavy regulations and save millions that would otherwise go to government taxes. However, there's a severe catch to this loophole. When disaster strikes and bailouts are needed, those small island nations simply cannot rescue you. Next is the staggering payroll required to maintain a floating city, keeping thousands of essential workers humming in the engine rooms and galleys. A vast majority of these employees hail from places like the Philippines and Indonesia, committing to grueling 10-month stints without a single break. Because the vessel operates under offshore jurisdiction, operators can legally distribute paychecks that would instantly violate strict American labor laws. Financial investigators revealed that entry-level cleaners often take home a mere $400 to $700 a month for relentless 11-hour daily shifts. With standard contracts demanding over 300 hours every month, these hardworking individuals are effectively earning less than $2 an hour. This ruthless offshore strategy dictates the entire financial model, drastically suppressing wages and bypassing regulatory red tape to keep the enterprise highly profitable. Yet, even with these extreme cost-cutting measures, the daily invoice to keep a colossal megaship operational remains absolutely terrifying. Looking at recent data for a vessel like Icon of the Seas, annual running expenses easily hit an astonishing $355 million. When you break that down, operators are bleeding approximately $920,000 every single day, whether the ship is fully booked or completely empty. Beyond the massive labor expenses, simply keeping the colossal engines churning is the ultimate budget killer, burning through vast reserves of fuel daily. At current market rates, propelling the massive vessel through the ocean easily incinerates up to $150,000 every 24 hours. This astronomical burn rate explains why captains intentionally cruise at a leisurely 18 to 20 knots rather than pushing the ship's maximum limits. Pushing the throttles higher doesn't just linearly increase costs, the fuel consumption multiplies exponentially, making high-speed transit a complete financial nightmare. Meanwhile, feeding thousands of passengers and crew costs over $100,000 daily, an expense kept surprisingly low through unprecedented bulk purchasing. Whenever one of these floating cities docks at popular destinations like Nassau or Barcelona, they must pay hefty fees just for the privilege. Over a year of non-stop sailing and constant port visits, these docking expenses accumulate into a staggering financial burden for the operators. Then comes mandatory upkeep. Maritime authorities demand that every passenger vessel undergoes rigorous dry dock inspections twice every 5 years. These required technical overhauls strip a minimum of $12 million from the budget, keeping the vessel out of action for several weeks. Consider Royal Caribbean's Allure of the Seas, which was pulled entirely out of service in April 2025 for a $100 million renovation. During that massive upgrade period, the company burned through millions of dollars while generating absolutely zero revenue from passengers. You also have to insure a $2 billion asset against unpredictable dangers like rogue waves, fierce hurricanes, and potential environmental disasters. When you tally it all together, simply keeping one of these megaships operational costs between $800,000 and $1 million every single day. This staggering daily expenditure creates an intense, fundamental financial pressure that cruise operators wake up to every single morning. This brings us to a common misconception. Tourists see bargain ticket prices, like $400 for a week in the Caribbean, and get confused. They assume the company must be bleeding money, and they are somewhat right. The base fare is essentially a loss leader with razor-thin margins. Once travel agents and port fees take their cut, the ticket barely covers anything. It is simply the bait, and you are the fish. Boarding the vessel means stepping into a masterfully engineered commercial bubble designed to pleasantly and voluntarily drain your wallet. Stranded in the middle of the ocean, the nearest competitor is over the horizon, leaving you completely reliant on the ship for everything. Whether you crave a cocktail, a spa treatment, or a spin at the casino, you pay their premium, driving the immense onboard revenue that fuels this industry. The sheer scale of this onboard revenue is staggering, as perfectly illustrated by Royal Caribbean's financial reports from 2024. That year, the corporation hosted over 8.5 million travelers, bringing in a massive $16.48 billion. Shockingly, roughly 30% of that total, or about $4.3 billion, was generated entirely beyond the initial ticket price. The profit margins on these extras are astronomical, especially with all-inclusive beverage packages that can cost up to $90 a day. Because cruise lines buy their liquor in massive wholesale quantities, their gross margin on every poured drink tops 80%. Meanwhile, floating casinos operate totally free from strict mainland regulations, and onboard spas command prices rivaling luxury 5-star resorts. To make parting with your cash even easier, wearable wristbands and preloaded cards completely remove the psychological friction of real-time spending. This psychological game starts early. In 2025, nearly half of Royal Caribbean's extra revenue was locked in before the ship even left port. Vacationers excitedly reserving dinners and shore excursions through the company app actually end up spending 2.5 times more than walk-ons. It is a brilliantly tuned machine where a modest $500 fare easily transforms into a $1,300 gold mine per passenger. Armed with mountains of historical data on spending habits, these companies quite literally architect their vessels to maximize your consumption. This is exactly why bustling casinos dominate busy thoroughfares, and duty-free shops are deliberately placed right by the gangway exit. But here is the counterintuitive secret behind their incredible profits. While building a larger ship increases overall expenses, it actually slashes the cost per guest. This powerful principle of economies of scale is the ultimate reason why the industry relentlessly constructs ever larger floating megacities. Whether hauling 2,000 or 6,000 vacationers, the company still only pays for one bridge crew, one propulsion system, and one theater cast. By distributing those immovable expenses across 6,000 travelers rather than just 2, the entire financial equation completely transforms. This dramatic drop in the daily cost per guest allows lines to slash ticket prices, draw massive crowds, and rake in higher overall profits. Industry analysis proves this strategy works, revealing that a standard, non-mega cruise liner generates up to $300 million in annual revenue. From that gross income, pure net profit usually lands between $20 and $40 million, fluctuating based on route popularity and cabin occupancy. Meanwhile, giants like Royal Caribbean are practically minting money by launching colossal vessels like the Icon of the Seas, built for over 7,000 guests. With their adjusted 2025 earnings projected around $15 a share, they achieve a jaw-dropping profit margin that most other sectors could only dream of. But supersizing these floating resorts introduces a terrifying structural vulnerability, a reality that struck the Carnival Triumph on February 10, 2013. Just 4 days into a routine voyage from Texas to Mexico, a leaking diesel generator sparked a sudden fire inside the aft engine room. Though the flames were extinguished automatically with 0 casualties, the blaze completely destroyed the ship's electrical grid, plunging the vessel into a total blackout. Suddenly, the climate control died, food storage warmed up, and, most dreadfully, the vacuum system powering every single toilet on the ship stopped working. Over 4,000 stranded passengers watched as raw sewage flooded the corridors, forcing many to drag their mattresses onto the open deck to escape the suffocating stench. After a grueling 5-day tow to Alabama, one survivor described the horrific ordeal as feeling primitive, while others claimed the vessel literally smelled like a zoo. The resulting investigation uncovered something even more damaging. Carnival's own logs proved the blazing generator had been overdue for essential maintenance for well over a year. Furthermore, the vessel had suffered 9 prior fuel leaks, and just 2 weeks earlier, separate propulsion failures had severely delayed its arrival into port. Following a federal judge's ruling of gross negligence, Carnival was forced into massive passenger payouts, confidential lawsuit settlements, and a $500 million fleet-wide safety overhaul. Hoping to distance themselves from the scandal, the company rebranded the vessel as Carnival Sunrise and shipped it to Spain for a $200 million reconstruction. It was outfitted with brand new engines, backup power sources, and completely overhauled plumbing and fire safety mechanisms. This staggering price tag all traced back to a single delayed maintenance check on a solitary diesel generator. Yet, as catastrophic as that ordeal was, nothing in maritime history could rival the unprecedented nightmare that struck in early 2020. The coronavirus tore through cruise ships with terrifying speed, thrusting them into the global spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Moored off the Japanese coast, the Diamond Princess became an early symbol of the pandemic, suffering 700 infections and 9 tragic fatalities. Almost overnight, the media began dubbing these luxury liners as floating petri dishes, causing instantaneous and severe damage to their public image. By March, American health authorities enacted a strict no-sail mandate, abruptly paralyzing all passenger voyages within United States territory. The rest of the world quickly copied the ban, leaving hundreds of massive ships stranded at anchorages globally, generating zero income. This sudden halt exposed a terrifying structural flaw, as Carnival shifted from earning $57 million daily to bleeding $650 million every month. A parked ship still demands massive upkeep, requiring fuel, a skeleton crew for basic maintenance, and relentless insurance premiums. With contractual obligations continuing despite the global lockdown, the corporation hemorrhaged an astonishing $10 billion throughout that catastrophic year. Desperate to stay afloat, they raised $19 billion in fresh debt, scrapped aging vessels, and paused upcoming ship deliveries. The financial damage was long-lasting, pushing their total debt to a crushing $32 billion by 2023. Even after returning to record profitability years later, their skyrocketing interest payments revealed a fragile reality where another sudden crisis could be fatal. Fast forward to 2025, and despite pulling in phenomenal, record-breaking earnings, the company was still staggering under nearly $27 billion of debt. Their annual interest fees alone devoured over $1 billion, representing a massive 6-fold spike from what they owed back in 2019. Although their current profits are larger, the fundamental foundation is incredibly fragile, meaning just one more global disruption could turn those loans fatal. While industry giants successfully bounced back, boasting record-breaking reservations and billions in fresh profits, a dark shadow still lingers over every financial report. To truly grasp how this high-stakes game operates, we have to break down the exact mathematics of a typical modern cruise sailing. During a fantastic year, a megaship sails at 108% capacity, cramming in 6,000 vacationers by filling every extra cabin bunk. Base ticket sales generate roughly $8 million per voyage, while additional spending at bars, spas, and casinos adds over $3 million more. A standard 7-day journey can pull in $12 million, leaving about $5 million in clear profit after subtracting massive weekly operational costs. By completing 50 voyages a year, a single vessel can generate up to $250 million before corporate overhead and interest kick in. Yet, even with tens of millions in annual net profit, paying off a $2 billion vessel takes anywhere from 25 to 50 agonizingly long years. Then comes the bad year, where economic recessions, international conflicts, or sudden health scares unexpectedly drag passenger occupancy down to just 70%. Combine that with soaring fuel prices, extreme hurricane seasons ruining Caribbean routes, or a mechanical failure trapping a ship in dry dock for weeks. Because operating costs are strictly fixed, a sudden drop in revenue instantly turns a healthy $40 million annual surplus into a disastrous $30 million hole. That massive $50 to $80 million swing ultimately dictates a company's survival, completely overshadowing any flashy vessel launches or headline-grabbing profit announcements. Out of the thousands a passenger spends, only a tiny fraction becomes actual profit, a razor-thin margin that vanishes the moment costs inevitably rise. Thriving in this cutthroat business requires far more than just constructing a beautiful vessel and packing it with eager vacationers. True success comes from decades of experience and the immense scale needed to distribute expenses across gigantic fleets and millions of guests. These seasoned veterans possess the leverage to purchase fuel and provisions in massive quantities, securing port deals impossible for smaller operators. In fact, an overwhelming 72% of the entire global market is dominated by just three titans: Carnival, Royal Caribbean, and Norwegian. This powerful oligopoly commands massive fleets and unparalleled negotiating power, but their true secret weapon lies in exclusive, company-owned tropical destinations. For instance, Royal Caribbean poured hundreds of millions into transforming a Bahamian beach into a private paradise, listed simply as a regular port. However, on this exclusive island, every single penny spent by visitors bypasses local businesses and flows straight into the cruise line's pocket. With waterslide passes reaching near $200 and private cabanas costing over $1,000, this single destination generates mind-boggling annual returns. Disney's private retreat operates identically, having paid out hundreds of millions in dividends over a decade, proving just how incredibly lucrative this strategy is. It is the ultimate display of vertical integration. Guests pay to board the vessel, only to be transported directly to a corporate-owned playground. There is absolutely no revenue leakage and zero outside competition, meaning the corporation successfully captures every single dollar you spend ashore. As the global industry marches toward nearly $80 billion in revenue by 2026, the vessels expand and the onboard spending traps grow stealthier. Yet every single departure remains a high-stakes gamble. If they can keep cabins full and dodge crises, the financial rewards are absolutely astronomical. But the moment those staterooms sit empty, the floating resort instantly stops generating cash and rapidly begins burning through massive piles of capital instead. Ultimately, these billion-dollar floating cities are perfectly engineered machines designed to monetize your captivity, because out on the ocean, the house absolutely always wins.